welcome to the September meetup for the Cypress UK community group. This is our, I think, fifth meetup now, and so far, yep, it's been really positive. And today we're joined by Stefano Magni. He's actually a fellow Cypress ambassador, and I guess for this meetup, it will be slightly different from the previous meetups, that we've done. And this is more sort of Stefano sharing his personal experience. So I'm hoping that, it will be useful for everyone who wants to, like learn more, about a specific thing, and not just Cypress. And just to give a quick introduction to Stefano. So as I mentioned, Stefano is a Cypress ambassador. He's, currently focused on, using React, TypeScript, and currently he's actually working on a big project called UI testing best practices. And you might often see him before because he speaks regularly at meetups and conferences. And yeah, without further ado, I'm gonna hand it over now to Stefano. And yep, I hope everyone enjoys.
Just a second that I'm going to share my screen with the slides. Okay. So you should see my screen now.
Yeah, we can see it.
Perfect. So I can start. So, hi everyone, and welcome to my Deepening thing at a time where I want to share with you my experience with Cypress, not only in order to understand my path with Cypress, that it's almost privately, but how and why I do that during 2019 and 2020. So, first of all, I'm Stefano Magni. I'm an Italian front-end developer, and I have a strong passion for my work and for improving quality at jobs. So that's why I became a Cypress ambassador, because I fell in love with the testing world, and obviously with the UI testing world, and with Cypress, because you all know that it's an amazing tool. And thanks to Cypress, I'm even an instructor, and I taught at 3 courses until now. And I currently work for Workwave, a field service software company. So we create software for GPS tracking and routing calculations. But let's start with the talk. So I'm going to share with you, first of all, my path with Cypress, and then what drives me during this period, and the results and the byproducts of this path. So if you don't know me, no problem, I'm not so famous. And I started in early 2018 when I fell in love with the testing world, because I have worked for a lot of time in a web agency, and then I moved to a product company in order to improve the quality of my work and learn something new, and learn my job better, because for a front-end developer, working always on some quite interactive but not so much projects in a web company is quite limited. So after 10 years, I moved to product development. And in early 2018, I fell in love with the testing world, because obviously I have to develop a product and I have to test it pretty well. So I started with unit testing, but I had a strong passion even for browser automation, because in the past I used Selenium and Puppeteer, but only for automating some manual steps. So late in 2018, I fell in love with Cypress, and it was obviously a good choice, because you all know that Cypress is quite amazing. And after some bad experiences with Selenium and Puppeteer, in order to test the product I was working on, I decided to move with Cypress, and I was pretty happy with Cypress. But I had one big problem in my mind, because probably a lot of you are more front-end engineers, but I know that Cypress is dedicated more or less, that the Cypress audience is more or less split in 50% front-end developers and 50% QA engineers. And in my case, I'm a front-end developer. Every day, a new framework burns. Every day, a new pattern is discovered. Every day, I have a lot of tweets and a lot of new interesting articles about front-end development. But the problem is that obviously I want to be up to date with everything, and so I was used to read a lot of different things during my day. And the problem is that I was going to know a few of every topic, but I wasn't knowing something pretty good, like obviously apart from the front-end development in general, because I was a senior developer. So the big decision for 2019 in my mind was to concentrate on a single topic for a whole month. And so since I was in love with Cypress and the testing world, and those were the two main topics that I want to learn pretty well, I decided to deepen Cypress for a whole month. But deciding to deepen Cypress for a whole month meant even not reading anything apart from Cypress, because I didn't care for a month about every React release. For example, in the same period, the React hooks became popular, and I completely ignored that. And I didn't care about the latest JavaScript framework, etc., etc. And this was the real important decision, to concentrate on a single thing for a month. And the talk of today is about concentrating on a single topic, and obviously my results, the byproducts, but why and what are the advantages of doing something like that. And just because I have seen the question on the Slido, I'm not going to talk about technical details in this talk. Again, returning to the talk, on January, so I studied Cypress for 1 month, Cypress and the UI testing world. So every minute dedicated to studying was only to those short topics. And with the same goal, I started answering on STACKOVERFLOW about Cypress, because when you want, I think that applying your knowledge to other people's problems is a good solution in order to deepen a topic. So since I was already using Cypress at work, but I really want to have a really strong knowledge of Cypress. So I started answering on Stack Overflow and picking other people's problems and finding a solution, because Cypress is widely used, but not so much to create, for example, thousands of questions on Stack Overflow, like, for example, the JavaScript world or the React world. So I think that I want to answer on something about React, general React or general JavaScript on Stack Overflow, because there is a rush and a race between all the people on Stack Overflow. But the questions of Cypress are quite a lot, but not so much, and you can usually take your time to prepare an example and share it on GitHub and checking that everything works, etc., etc. So I started answering Stack Overflow, but my goal, was a completely selfish goal, because I started answering Stack Overflow first of all because I want to learn something new, and then even because I love help other people. But the most important thing for me, it was to learn something new. Then I'm going to talk to you about it later on. And on March 2019, I started sharing Cypress plugins on GitHub and NPM, because obviously, first of all, as I told you, I was using Cypress at work, and I shared some plugins that I write for myself. For example, like Cypress protobuf plugins or the Cypress OTP plugin. But for example, my most successful plugin that's Cypress Wait Until. I don't have written it for myself because uh, if you know pretty well Cypress and how to write promises, you don't need Cypress Wait Until at all. But answering on people's Stack Overflow, I realized that a lot of developers were struggling writing recursive promises because Cypress avoids you to do that, but sometimes when you have to do something really custom for your case, you have to write recursive promises. And since 2, 4, 5 developers, I replied using them. I replied to them on Stack Overflow in order to help them with their problem that were related to recursive promises. I decided to write Cypress Wait Until and only for them. And Cypress Wait Until is my most successful plugin because currently is downloaded more than 300,000 times a month. And on April 2019, I started writing a GitHub book about UI testing because I realized that the web was full of contents, but full of good contents and habits about UI testing, but a lot of them were pretty split with on different tools, and sometimes there were pretty general devices, but sometimes the contents were about, for example, Selenium, and they are not so. It was not so obvious how to leverage them with Cypress 2, and so I decided to start my GitHub book and writing more or less 25 contents on GitHub about the topic. And just to take a look at Slido, okay, these are generic Cypress questions, so I'm going to answer them later on. And returning to the talk, on May 2019, I talked at the first meetup about Cypress because as I told you, during all 2018, I deepened the testing topic, but I was using Puppeteer. And even if I was not so satisfied from Puppeteer, I decided to talk at some meetups about it in order to improve my knowledge. But on May 2019, a local meetup asked me to talk about Puppeteer, and I proposed to talk about Cypress because I was using Cypress since 6 months at the time. And this talk was the first of 10 meetups. And I met a lot of people during the meetups. And since it's quite easy to talk at meetups, I suggest you to expose yourself to talking to public speaking on meetups. But again, I'm going to talk about it later. And on June 2019, probably the most interesting thing because obviously as every developer that was sharing something about Cypress at the time, most of them becomes Cypress ambassadors because if you constantly share knowledge of Cypress, you are invited to share the ambassadors channel. And since Cypress had an open position for a front-end developer, I applied, and so they interviewed me, and this was this this was quite a dream for me because I love Cypress. I'm a front-end developer. I love working on on big product. I love working on open source projects. So working with Cypress was quite a dream. And unfortunately, I passed all the interviews, but they can't hire me because unfortunately hiring from Italy is not so easy from a bureaucratic perspective. So I passed the interviews, and I don't work for Cypress at the moment, but we are in the long run with them. And again, even if I don't work for Cypress at the moment, I was pretty happy for this opportunity. And on July, I talked at the first conference about Cypress, and it was the first of 3 conferences, Italian and international ones. And on September, another interesting thing, I moved to a new company because of a new amazing company, because I currently work for Workwave, and Workwave is an amazing company. And I met my current colleagues and my manager at one of the meetups. It was not so close to my house, the meetup, because it was 300 kilometers away. But the 10 meetups that I mentioned were on all the northern of Italy. So I moved quite a lot for my meetups. And on one of these meetups, I met my manager and my colleagues, and then they interviewed me, and we decided to work together. So uh, I think it's really interesting that I met them and one of my meetup. And one of my first goals was to started teaching, because again, in order to improve my knowledge, I want to teach some people about my experience. And on October 2019, I had my first course, and the first of three. And for 2020, I have already booked other three courses about the same topic. And those were the direct results, but there are a lot of byproducts because my open source projects received more than 900 stars, and my followers on Twitter moved from 2 to 600. And those are just vanity metrics, but I don't know what drives you, but when I started sharing everything about Cypress, I knew that probably even the vanity metrics were going to go up. But more in general, the most important thing of all is that I helped and knew a lot of people. And I I know that I know that knowing some people in the COVID period is harder than the standard ones, but obviously I have met a lot of people directly, and I knew a lot of people even in digital ways. So this is the same for this period. And but more in general, so this is my path with Cypress, but why I have started and what drives me in general, because I think that you share with me some goals, because most of all, I'm driven by learning. I'm really happy only when I learn something new, when I learn how to improve my job, when I learn how to help people. Learning in general is what makes me really happy every day when I wake up. And I'm even driven by quality. I know that a lot of you, if you are here, is because probably you love quality like me, and I love to improve quality. So I love to improve quality in every aspect of my life, but at work, obviously, I want to have more stable products and dedicate less time to check that everything works. And I have passion even for helping people. As I told you, learning is my strongest passion at all, but I love to help people because when I can help a colleague of mine, when I can help another developer, when I can help someone on Stack Overflow, I'm really happy. I know that helping people makes me really happy. And last but not least, but it's the last, even by money. I don't want to lie you. Um, I started, I decided to return to public speaking when I had bigger economic needs when I bought my apartment. But so one of my initial goals was even to earn more money. But the problem is that I know that I needed more money, but money doesn't motivate me when I wake up in the morning. So when I'm used to work with a lot of passionate people in good environments, and I'm really used to go to go super happy at work. And if I think of money, money doesn't make me so happy in the morning. So I need money, but when I wake up in the morning, if I think about money, I'm not so happy going about work, because I'm happy again when I help people, when I improve quality, and when I learn. And the step that I took is how I can earn my money doing something that I have a strong passion for, like for obviously improving quality, helping people, and learning. And so I started sharing everything because I knew that probably in less than a year, I would have received a lot of big opportunities from sharing things about Cypress. But for me, it was completely natural. So I need my money, but for me, it was natural to learn and share and help people. Then the money would have been a result. But I'm here not to tell you that I had a lot of positive results from 1.5 years with sharing everything about Cypress. I'm here trying to motivate you, and how you could do the same on the same or different topic is not so important, or better, I try to do that. So first of all, I don't know exactly every one of you what you do every day at job, but as I told you, I'm a front-end developer and I'm used to have something new to study every day. So in general, please forget FOMO, forget fear of missing out. For a lot of time, and even nowadays, sometimes I have a strong fear of missing out, because again, a lot of thousands of developers shares new libraries and new frameworks and new patterns and new contents and new courses, and I can't stay up to date with them. And so I'm scared about being left behind. That's fear of missing out. But please forget about that, because fear of missing out did the same with me. And FOMO is just bringing you to become a jack of all trades, but not a real, you're not going to have a strong knowledge on something because of fear of missing out. So please choose one topic that you want to learn or deepen, and go with that. For me, it was UI testing and Cypress. I know that it seems to be two different topics, but it's just one. And for me, it was Cypress. I decided to learn and to deepen Cypress when I have learned it, in order to become a really expert with Cypress. Okay, so instead of knowing just a bit of everything, I want to know everything about Cypress and everything about the UI testing world. And so please choose just one topic and stick with it. But please don't spend so much time stuck on this choice. Sorry, because this is one of my favorite quote. If you want to climb a mountain, you won't take the first step. But if you take the first step, you will climb a mountain. And what are the problems where usually when you have to choose just one topic? First of all, probably you are going to write down a list of 2 or 3 or 4 topics that you really want to learn or deepen, and you have to choose just one of them, okay? And usually you think that you can't know in advance which is the right one and which are the wrong ones, okay? And usually you, oh, for example, this is my case. I waste a lot of time on this decision, and I could even waste a lot of time. I could waste, for example, 1 month on this decision. Not just because I spend a real month on this decision, but because this decision is going to postpone me and delay my learning start. So don't worry. Obviously, take your time for this choice, but if you want, if you choose one of the topic and go with that. If this will be this won't be the right topic, there is no problem. But if you don't start, you can't understand which are the wrong topics and which are the right ones. So start with a topic and go on. And even if in 1 month you are going to understand that you probably want to learn, for example, Rust, Go, and TypeScript, and you start with Rust, and you realize that probably you love to, probably you prefer Go instead of Rust, no problem. You have learned something in this month about Rust, and then you have understood that you must return to Go, okay, and but without starting with Rust, even if Rust wasn't the right choice, you can't understand that Go is your choice. And this quote is more about the final dream. For example, if you want to become an NG instructor, I don't think that you must keep in mind you can start on the path to become an NG instructor if you want to be an NG instructor and you haven't shared anything on GitHub, for example. But being an administrator is the final step, but you have to go through probably tens of steps. So instead of thinking about, I want to be an administrator, but how I want to be an administrator, please take a step. Start on STACKOVERFLOW, start on GitHub, start on Reader, start writing articles, start recording videos. You have a lot of choices, but please start with something. And then when you start, you have already entered a new path, and probably you are going in the future to become, for example, an NG starter. But it's even possible that on the way to your final dream of becoming an NG starter, you find different ways. But please just start. When you start, you can't stop, but you have to start. And obviously, you need more time, and you need to use it better. What I mean. Um, Take my example, where I found the time to dedicate so much about Cypress. Well, I started commuting 1 hour earlier in the morning because usually I had a train at 8 a.m. and I started working on at 9 a.m. So I had 1 hour commuting on the train, and instead I prefer to keep the train on 7 a.m. So I had from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. two full hours, okay? So I have these 2 hours and the 1 hour commuting to home from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. And so they are 3 hours a day. But during these 3 hours, I was pretty focused. I had my goal in my mind. I know that I was trying to save this time to deepen Cypress, and so I found more time, but I even started using my time better because a lot of times you are going to waste your time probably jumping on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and playing something on your smartphone. There is nothing wrong, but if you want to learn to deepen something so good, you have to use your time better. And I think more in general, I think that companies can't pretend that employees study just out of the work, but I think that at the same time, employees can't pretend that to study only inside the work. So for me, my work is a passion. So I want to study a lot when I'm at work, because if I study, I improve my work, and I want to study it even want to study even out of my work, because for me is a passion. And I have a lot of questions on Slido, and sorry, I'm going to answer them later. And one biggest thing was even moving to learn in public. I got motivated by Sean Wang, and later I'm going to send you the link. And learning in public is really powerful. So speaking at meetups, having courses, and writing articles and recording videos are all ways to improve your learning public, because remember that I started sharing my Cypress knowledge before becoming a Cypress expert. When I had a middle knowledge of Cypress, I started sharing my knowledge, even because I knew that my knowledge was precious for a lot of people, and even because I knew that exposing myself to other people let me deepen in a better way Cypress. Because every time, for example, when I have to prepare a talk, a lot of times I think about the questions that attendees will ask me, and so in order to being sure to being able to respond, I have to deepen something that is not strongly related to what I do job every day, but even slight different. And please remember that if you can't explain it, you don't know it. What I mean, try to think about what something that you know pretty well, and try to explain it to a colleague of yours or a friend of yours. And sometimes you realize that you are not so good at explaining it. And but if you can't explain it, probably there are a lot of flaws in your knowledge, and probably there's a lot of empty spots in your knowledge. And so in this case, if you expose yourself on with learning in public, if you talk at meetups, you must be able to expose those stuff, and then you're going to deepen those stuff. That's why learning in public is so powerful. And please don't think that you have nothing to say in public, because a lot of times people are afraid and don't want to give talks because they think that they have nothing to share. But it's false, because you think that you have nothing to share just because there are a lot of things that you take for granted. But the way you solve the problem is pretty unique to you. And so even if you invented a way of solving a problem, or only even if you mixed some contents found on the web, you probably put them together and find a unique way to solve the problem. So if you're trying to if you carefully take a look at at your everyday job, you realize that you solve problems in a way that only your experience led you to resolve this way. And this kind of knowledge is interesting for other people, because probably other people are struggling to solve to solve the same problem, and you have already solved that. And don't be afraid by exposing that you don't know things. When you expose yourself, sometimes you are going to tell some mistakes and write some mistakes, but don't be afraid for that, because if you if you don't know if you know something in a better way, uh, you have two choices. You can take your bad knowledge with you, or you can expose your bad knowledge. And when you expose your bad knowledge, probably someone are going to fix your mistakes. So probably for who helps you, you're going to be put on the wall of shame. But it's not a problem, because you expose your knowledge, they fix it, and so you have a better knowledge. And it happened to me, for example, sometimes on Stack Overflow, where I didn't give the right answer. Or for example, 1 month ago, a friend of mine shared with me an article about generics of TypeScript generics, and I told him that the article was completely wrong, and he understood almost nothing about generics, but thanks to my feedback, now he knows generics. But my feedback came only after his article. So only thanks to the fact that he shared his knowledge on an article, he now knows almost everything about TypeScript generics. And another interesting thing is that when you uh, think about production bugs. When you have a production bug, you are going to learn in a fast way because you have to solve these bugs. So you need bugs, not only bugs. There are a lot of ways to learn, from reading the documentation and applying your job and solving production bugs. So if you have a lot of production bugs, you are going to learn a lot. And when you apply your knowledge not only to your production bugs, but even to other people's production bugs, you're going to learn a lot from them. And if you think about that, Stack Overflow is perfect, because on Stack Overflow, people gives you for free their production bugs, okay? So you can apply your knowledge to their production bugs. A lot of people find production bugs by creating pet projects, but in my case, I don't think that I'm so good creating pet projects, because usually I waste my time concentrating on some details that are completely useless in order to improve my knowledge. And so that's why I love to help people on Stack Overflow, because I have their production problems. I have to help them to fix their bugs, and so my knowledge, I can improve a lot my knowledge. And in general, who inspired me? Because obviously I haven't invented anything. I got inspired by a lot of different people, and all of these names are links. So Mary is going to share the slides on Meetup and on Slido and on the chat here in Zoom. And all these yellow texts are links. And coincidences inspired me, because a tweet of his inspired me a lot, because he shared that for your professional career, you have to improve your skills, your reputation, and your network. And when I read it, I realized that I spent a lot of years improving my skills, but not improving my network and my online reputation. And I knew that by sharing my knowledge with on Cypress, um, I was on the right way to improve my online reputation and increasing my network. And Sean Wang's, the name links to the Learning Public Manifesto, a whole article about the Learning Public with a lot of advantages that I suggest you to learn. And Evergreen Kensi Dodds, because he inspired me a lot with his newsletters. And thank you. Uh, the talk is almost finished before I take a look at the questions. And if you want to read a written version of these slides, you can find them on my Medium and Dev channel, because before preparing these slides, I shared an article about the same topic. And so I, I I move here the slide of questions. And Mary, please stop me if you prefer. Otherwise, I'm
Yeah.
going to answer some questions.
Yep, no worries. Yep, take your time. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And so, how much knowledge should tester have in order to use Cypress effectively? Well, I think that if you don't know JavaScript, Cypress could not be the best solution, because Cypress hides you a lot of JavaScript complexity. But when there is something that doesn't work, if you don't know JavaScript pretty well, you can't understand if it doesn't work in your front-end application, for example, or in the way that you use Cypress, for example. And besides teaching on conferences, would you consider teaching on a learning platform like Udemy or LinkedIn Learning? Yes, yes, I considered that. And in my mind, teaching on a learning platform is a really interesting solution, but I haven't published courses on Udemy, for example, and yet. because preparing courses is really time consuming. When I prepared my first course, I have worked almost continuously for a month, obviously even outside work and even in the weekend. And so, um, as I told you, I'd like to grant a really high quality of my courses. And so, currently I don't have so much free time because again, even if I currently work remotely, I wake up 1 hour earlier and I come to the office almost 2 hours earlier on my everyday job, and that's just for studying. And I have to be honest. Mm, since since the moment I'm not using I'm working on a big projects, and so at the moment I'm not using Cypress at work. And since I'm not using Cypress at work for 4 or 5 months, I don't want at the moment to share more courses on, for example, Udemy, because I'd like to deepen other topics at the moment, because I think that it's right that if you apply your knowledge to both job and your free time, you're going to learn a lot. But obviously, the job is your main task during the day. So at the moment, I'm improving my Cypress knowledge a bit instead of a lot, like when I was using Cypress at work. So at the moment, I don't consider to teach on learning platform because I prefer to deepen other topics. Then I um, I prefer to learn instead of creating courses, because I think that the return in term of learning of a course uh, currently is not so much compared to what I can learn by helping people on STACKOVERFLOW, for example. So yes, I thought about that, but at the moment I'm not considering to release courses. I'm just teaching on directly on in some companies here in Italy. And okay, so Anonymous feels unqualified for Cypress test due to the missing JavaScript knowledge. Again, I think that yes, you have to know JavaScript a lot in order to use Cypress. But again, Cypress is an order of magnitude simpler than Selenium or Puppeteer, but I think that you can't use Cypress without knowing JavaScript a lot. And the links to my Cypress plugins, okay, I'm going to share with Mary this link that that is a link to my. I prepared this page because a lot of times I have to share my work and I don't have too much links to share, so I prepared a section with all my all my talks on my courses and my book and my articles and all my plugins. So I'm going to send this link to Mary. And my advice to someone who wants to become a Cypress ambassador, well, I think my experience was pretty different. In my mind, there wasn't the goal of becoming a Cypress ambassador. So, and my own consideration is the same for money. For example, if I want to becoming a Cypress ambassador itself doesn't motivate me, okay? Because what means to be a Cypress ambassador? Just to be part of a private channel or Slack. I think that in my case, I want to become a Cypress ambassador only if I if I if I shared some knowledge and helped a lot of people. So I demonstrated to be a Cypress ambassador. So if you want an advice, simply start speaking about Cypress and share something interesting about how you use Cypress at work, and you will become a Cypress ambassador, even if it was not become a Cypress ambassador itself is quite a vanity metric for me, so I'm not so interested in that. Again, Cypress ambassador is a result. I'm happy to be an ambassador, but is a result. A Cypress ambassador is just people that talks and about Cypress and share Cypress experience. And can anyone pick up React? Best way to learn? Start with the documentation. What I mean, I realized when I started answering on Stack Overflow, I realized that half of the questions could be answered just by knowing a lot the official documentation. So, for example, for Cypress, just knowing the documentation, that's amazing, allowed me to answer half of the questions. And the same is for React, for example. So start always with the documentation, learn the documentation, study the documentation. You have to know the documentation the best way. And I have difficulty in writing promise. Could you please share with your personal experience that helped you? Do you need to learn JavaScript first? Yes, if you don't know JavaScript, you can't write good promises. And promises are quite easy, but not quite easy to be mastered. So yes, please learn JavaScript and then learn promises in deep. And my Git repository, I don't know which is the repository that you want, but if you go to my GitHub profile, that's Noriste. Okay, this is my nickname on GitHub. You can find all the resources that I shared. You can find all my contributions page with all the slides, the articles and the courses, my UI testing best practices book, and a lot of other plugins like, for example, Cypress Wait Until, etc., etc. And so I think that, okay, I'm okay with the questions. So Mary,
Yeah.
I think that
I
I
think
can stop sharing the screen.
yeah, I think there's two more questions if you still have time, if you just scroll back
Yep,
up, because I think
absolutely.
those two questions have the most number of votes. So there's one question around, for which type of applications would you not use Cypress?
I think that Cypress is not good, obviously, for mobile applications. And I think that Cypress is not good, for example, for socket-based applications, because if you have a front-end application that communicates mainly via socket with the server, you have to write something. I'm not saying that Cypress is not good. Testing more in general, a front-end application made that leverages socket communication, and that has, for example, a lot of canvas elements inside it, are pretty hard to be tested in general, not only for Cypress. And I think that you must avoid Cypress if you specifically need to test your front-end application, for example, on Internet Explorer. But please don't. One rule of thumb for testing. Usually, a lot of people say to me that Cypress supports only Chrome and Firefox, so I can't use it because I want to test my front-end application on all the browsers. And this is completely false, because when you realize how much time you need to test everything on every browser, I know a lot of people that choose Selenium or, for example, Test Cafe because they want to test everything on every browser, but they have ever launched a test on a browser different from Chrome, because usually there are two main points. First of all, end-to-end test and UI test in general are really slow. So when you realize that you, for example, for your medium front-end application, you need 15 minutes of UI testing or 10 minutes of UI testing, you are not going to launch these 10 minutes tests on Firefox and Chrome and Opera and Safari and Internet Explorer, but only on Chrome. So if you want a tool that allows you to test on every browser, then you are going to use just Chrome. Please stay with Cypress. And another thing is that usually with a tool like Cypress, you check that everything works from a JavaScript perspective. What I mean, you are checking that the user interaction works. And but the user interaction work usually on every browser, because nowadays we are using Rollup or Webpack or Babel, and so you can write Cypress the way you want, and then we can write JavaScript the way you want, and your JavaScript is going to be converted to something that works on every browser. So usually with Cypress you check just that everything works, but everything works on every browser thanks to Webpack and Babel. So don't think that testing everything on every browser is so much important. And so again, but if you for example create a web application for an enterprise company that where everyone uses Internet Explorer, so go with Test Cafe. And I don't remember if I have more questions, Mary, sorry.
Let me check because I think I saw one with regards to test data management. But I think this is more sort of technical. But if you're alright in answering it, that would be really great. So there's a question around. Wait a minute. Can you explain test data management and provide examples with fixture and or DB seeding?
Okay, for this, I'm going to share my screen. I'm not too going deep. Okay, you can see my screen. Yeah, I'm not going so deep in this topic, but please check. So on my contribution page, on the okay for just a moment. So you can go to my slides.com profile where you can find my presentation. And on the front-end testing of Steroids talk, my last one, I have shared, I have shared this repository where you can find some examples of database seeding and fixtures with a lot of comments, because I have commented almost, I can show you them just a second. So this is the talk. Sorry, V2. Okay. Now I'm going to zoom, and okay, there are a lot of tests where I have commented almost every single line. So please go to this repository and you can find it on my GitHub profile.
Excellent. Yep. I'm gonna share the links to so first the slides specifically for this event, and then the GitHub page for all your contributions, as well as this specific GitHub link for
Perfect.
front end testing on steroids. But yeah, this has been really great. I certainly learned a lot as well, because I'm actually sort of similar situation where I'm trying to learn, as much as possible. And I think with, the pandemic happening, even though, it's not a good thing, one of the positive things is, we have speakers like you to, speak in our events. So it's always positive. So we're almost finished, and I'll be sharing the recording to everyone. And next month we actually have another event from John Hill, where he'll talk about, because at the moment there's currently a lot of tools. We've got Selenium, we've got Playwright, we've got Testcafe, we've got Cypress as well. So he's gonna talk about all those different tools on our next upcoming talk. And yep, I hope everyone found this useful. And yeah, I'll leave you to it. And thank you so much, Stefano, for speaking and sharing your personal experiences. If anyone wants to join our Cypress UK Slack channel, do let me know. So we have a public Slack channel. So if you have any specific Cypress questions, then you can ask us in that channel.
Mary, it's a pleasure, and
Yeah, thank
please,
you so
for all
much.
the attendees, share with me every kind of feedback, or with Mary, even positive or negative is not important, because thanks to feedback, I can improve my presentation.
Yep, definitely. Feedback is always appreciated. So if there's any, feedback that you can provide to us, that would be really helpful. So yeah, with that said, thanks again, everyone. And yep, have a great day.
Bye-bye. Thanks to
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.